Greetings from Costa Rica. It's a Wednesday night, hump day Costa Rica chat here with Costa Rica Matt, broadcasting live from Playa Junquial, Guanacaste, Costa Rica. And our topic tonight is an extremely important one. We're going to be talking about cars. And I have one of Costa Rica's top experts about cars joining me, a man named Doug Price, who has opened up a dealership in Parrita, that's in the Central Pacific part of the country. Doug already joined me earlier today to share his expertise on acquiring used vehicles here in Costa Rica. His interview is filled with incredibly valuable information. Later on, we're going to be talking to Doug about, first of all, how you can avoid ending up with one of those lemons in Costa Rica, a car that ends up sending you back and forth to the mechanic shop over and over again. You've heard those stories and you want to avoid lemons. Second of all, we're going to go over with Doug some information about which models and makes of cars are the best for expats, depending on their living situation. He has incredible experience looking at which cars work best for expatriates here, and he has really great knowledge to share on that. He also has some general tips about car ownership and acquiring a vehicle here in Costa Rica. Again, that's Doug Price from Price Auto Sales, who's going to be joining me for the main interview tonight in our topic about cars. First, before we interview Doug, we're going to do a quick, boring overview of the legal documents you need as a foreigner to drive your car legally here in Costa Rica. Excuse me. And we'll also cover my family's absolute longest road trip in Costa Rica with a couple of tips as to how you can avoid staying on the road quite as long as we did. So again, if you're joining us live, this is Costa Rica Matt broadcasting from Playa Junquial in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. I'm here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Costa Rica time, 9 p.m. Eastern, on and on across the different time zones, wherever you're watching. I appreciate you joining us for this evening's discussion of cars in Costa Rica and how you can be a smart expat vehicle purchaser here in the area. Thanks very much for joining us for another Costa Rica Hump Day chat with Costa Rica Matt. Cheers and stay tuned. Greetings from Costa Rica, everybody. This is Costa Rica Matt. If you haven't taken the time to subscribe to my channel, it must mean you don't like relevant, up-to-date information about Costa Rica, moving here, and real estate. I'm owner-broker of Latitude 10 Realty, along with one of the most amazing human beings on earth, my wife, Anne-Marie. She's at home with the boys tonight because it's another Costa Rica chat with Costa Rica Matt. Again, I'm here live on Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Costa Rica time, 9 p.m. Eastern time, always with the goal of empowering people, educating, and helping people not become victims or end up in those bad situations that you've read about online. If you're joining us live for the stream, be sure to comment where you're coming from. Send us all your questions. Tonight, I have an incredible interview with Doug Price of Price Auto Sales, Central Pacific down in Puntarenas. Anne-Marie, the boys, and I recently packed ourselves up to make the trip down to Price Auto Sales specifically because friends of friends had said that this was the best auto dealership in Costa Rica, and their reputation spoke for itself. There are endless online testimonials from people who have bought cars through Price and through Doug. They've had success, and I'm ecstatic because as a realtor here, I always get people asking me, how they should find a car, and how they can avoid those terrible stories about endless maintenance, etc. And usually, to be honest, as a realtor, I've been telling people I don't really talk about cars because in Costa Rica, there's a huge risk. If I make a recommendation about a car provider, it's very likely that they have a good number of lemons on their lot. And if my poor client ends up picking one of them, who knows how things are going to work out. Cars are just too treacherous to address, or at least I thought so. I thought so until I went down to Parrita, where Doug Price has Price Auto Sales. And I immediately saw the shop, and you could tell that this was absolutely a quality operation. I talked to Doug only briefly while we were there purchasing our car, and it was clear he's a person who knows what he's talking about, somebody who saw the need that foreigners have in Costa Rica for good cars. And he started up an amazing business to meet that need. He's got satisfied customers across the country. And tonight, some of the things Doug and I are going to cover are sort of the basic advice for owning a car here in Costa Rica. He gave some incredible insight, especially on which models you should be thinking about based on where you live and your driving situation. He also gives some very simple, straightforward advice on avoiding those lemons. And overall, Doug is a huge puzzle piece in the missing knowledge that I don't have as someone who really doesn't know cars, and someone, frankly, who had gotten lucky buying our first couple family cars. Before I bring in the interview with Doug Price about the specifics of autos here in Costa Rica, I wanted to start off with some quick, boring information to give you, as people thinking of moving to Costa Rica, an overview of what you need to own and legally drive a car here in Costa Rica. And I'm super excited to present my show's newest feature. I realized that the board behind this desk over here is entirely dry erasable. So I'm going to be using this for notes today. We're going over cars, obviously, and it's simple enough to give you the two quick legal documents that everybody talks about that you need to drive a car here in Costa Rica. Currently, you need these two requirements that I'm talking about are Revisión Técnico Vehicular and Marchamo. RTV, I've talked about on my channel before, and I actually went through the quick process where you get your inspection sticker, is an annual thing that you need to go through with your car, or you can get your sticker for 2 years if it's a newer vehicle. Here in Costa Rica, they check absolutely everything in their technical inspection. It's not just emissions like the US. They look to make sure you have your headrests, your reflective vest, your cones, the brakes have to work well, your alignment needs to be on. Really, when they do this RTV process, they run your car through a series of tests that make sure that everything's running correctly, and a lot of foreigners would opt to have their mechanic do it. I provided a manual for doing RTV on a previous video, and we'll put a link to that here. But essentially, it's not that difficult. If you know what you're up to and you book your appointment ahead of time, you can do your own technical inspection, get your sticker, and conquer that as a foreigner, even here in Costa Rica. Interestingly, next year, it sounds like RTV is going to change. Since the early 2000s, the specific provider of services to renew your car's technical inspection, which is RTV, has had a monopoly completa, like a full monopoly on providing these stickers for vehicles in the country. Next year, the government's talking about opening that up to multiple providers. So it may not be called specifically RTV. You might be seeing just technical inspection, etc. But you do need to have it. It's one of two requirements that if you get pulled over, the cops are really going to check for. That second requirement, marchamo, is the national insurance policy. Costa Rica does this interestingly compared to other countries. I've only lived in the US and Costa Rica. Here, your national car insurance policy is a fully social policy. Everybody's charges are based on the year of your car, the make and model, etc. And you pay your marchamo. Essentially, there's no deductions if you're a good driver. You're not really trying to negotiate prices or whatsoever, but you go into your bank. Banco Nacional has the service, and Banco de Costa Rica also does this, and walk into their service platform, and you can pay your car insurance there. The marchamo, this nationally mandated insurance, is absolutely one of the stickers that the cops will be looking for when they stop you at one of their traffic stops. So it's not something you can neglect whatsoever. And as I mentioned, it's a fully determined charge that puts your mind at ease because, for example, if you go into online bill pay to take care of this through Banco Nacional, you just put in your license plate number. They give you the cost of your marchamo or your insurance, and you're gonna basically pay that bill online and eventually take out the marchamo sticker at the bank. Interestingly, the government here does work through both Banco de Costa Rica and Banco Nacional. In many ways, they'll be sending documents that you've paid for, different legal processes that you've completed. The government will send that back to Banco Nacional, a branch where you can go get your marchamo sticker, and make sure when you get your marchamo sticker that you post it in your windshield, because literally there's a fine for not having your sticker in the windshield. Even if you've paid your policy and you're 100% legal to circular or to be on the streets, you do need to have that sticker put up there along with RTV. As a side note, in Costa Rica, you'll also have a third sticker in your windshield that has your license plate number. I hadn't really thought about the purpose, but it really prevents people from stealing license plates from another car and then being able to put them on theirs and get through traffic stops. If you had the $1 million idea that you could just switch out license plates while we have these vehicular restrictions, that doesn't work because of that third sticker. But essentially here in Costa Rica, if you're a foreigner, these are the two requirements you need to watch out for to legally have a car on the street. And both of them are the typical bureaucratic processes here that, yes, you could pay someone else to expedite for you, or you could fight through yourself and get your own requirements done. In just a minute, I'm going to start the interview here with Doug Price. Again, he's with Price Auto Sales in Parrita. He owned one of the largest auto dealerships in the US in the 90s. Doug should actually be watching, hopefully, and he'll be commenting and answering questions if people have them, because we did record our interview earlier. So do feel free to write questions there, or we can always ping him later. Again, I'm here on Wednesday nights live at 7 p.m. Costa Rica time. My name is Costa Rica Matt, or Matt Rosensteel with Latitude 10 Realty. Our topic tonight is cars in Costa Rica. And just before I bring on Doug, I want to mention a quick story from our trip down to Parrita to see him, because I think there's some value in it. My family decided to not take advantage of Doug's free delivery service, and we wanted to go all the way down to the dealership in Parrita in order to pick up the car, purchase it ourselves, and test drive it and bring it home. We also wanted to turn this into a fun trip, and maybe Daniel can bring up the picture again, because we got to take a ferry between the end of Guanacaste, the Nicoya Peninsula, where our province ends, and the city of Puntarenas. Now, It's very important to understand in Costa Rica, all of the provinces, actually several of the provinces have both a city that is their capital and the province name. For example, in Puntarenas, there is the city of Puntarenas. Our road trip was wonderful because we got a super early start. We had to drive 2.5 hours down to the ferry. We caught the ferry to get into Puntarenas. And as we're pulling in, we realize, oh my gosh, this dealership, yes, it is in Puntarenas province, but instead of Puntarenas, the city, it's down in Parrita, which happens to be about an hour and a half or 2 hours south of where we thought we would be purchasing the car. Which goes to show you, after 13 years of living here, knowing the terrain as well as Anne Marie and I do, even in our situation, we're fully bilingual. We like to think we're about as knowledgeable as expats in Costa Rica come. We end up taking an extra 3 or 4 hours jaunt on our road trips because we haven't confirmed exactly where a location is, because miscommunication happens, and because this sort of thing is what living in Costa Rica is about. So long story short is, instead of getting home at about 3 p.m. in the afternoon with our new car, at 3 p.m., we were actually passing back through the city of Puntarenas, headed home, and it turned into literally what felt like our longest family road trip ever, simply because we hadn't checked exactly where the dealership is. Long story short, it was all worth it. We got our car. I personally was so impressed with Doug Price down there. Immediately, I recognized that he has a professional operation, that he is really, in Costa Rica, one of the most knowledgeable people about used cars. He's in the chat, the man himself that you're about to meet virtually, willing to answer questions about used vehicles, buying here in Costa Rica. Without further ado, we will go ahead and share my interview with Doug Price of Price Auto Sales in Parrita. Let us know what questions you have and comments, and here we go, folks. Joins us from Parrita in the Central Pacific, Costa Rica. Doug is the owner-operator of Price Auto Sales. PriceAutosCR.com is their website. I recently met Doug at the very end of our family's longest ever road trip down to Parrita. We had decided to buy a car from Price specifically because the references for the dealership were so good. We looked up a few different cars that they had available, went down and purchased one based entirely on the fact that everybody that my friend had asked about finding a car in Costa Rica had recommended Price, or the vast majority of feedback when people were recommending a dealership was that you had to talk to Price Auto Sales. So we did it. We drove down south. We bought a car. I met Doug, and instantly I was filled with hope, because here in Costa Rica, finding quality automobiles and finding quality people in the automobile industry is in a haystack. Thank you for coming to Costa Rica, Doug. Thank you for selling us a nice new car. Thank you for what you're doing. And to be clear with everyone tonight, my job and my intention is not at all to do some sort of affiliate marketing thing where I'm making a commission on cars. I'm really just ecstatic that we have a competent professional selling cars here to expats. I want people to consider Doug among their options. Thanks very much for joining me today, Doug.
Thank you. Wow, what an introduction. Thank you very much.
Well, honestly, that's what it feels for somebody who's lived here for 13 years and now working with real estate clients constantly. Sure. There are certain subjects I don't want to advise them on. They'll say, how should I buy a car? And I say, look, no matter where you buy a car, there's the risk it's going to be a lemon. Yep. And guess what? I can't handle that. So just look for yourself.
Right.
No longer. First of all, Doug, tell us about your background and coming to Costa Rica and the business that you have today.
We came here to retire almost 5 years ago in 1 month. 1 month and 2 days, it'll be our anniversary. And weren't sure if we were going to stay. The plan was to check it out for 2 years and see what happened. And if we loved it after that, we would stay. We did. And I don't know if it was boredom from retirement or the frustrations that we had buying cars and then trying to fix these lemons that we kept buying. I just saw an opportunity. I ran the world's largest dealership in the 90s, and it burned me out. I swore I would never get back into that business again. And but there was just such a need for it here. Honestly, it's just the truth. I saw opportunity, but I mean, there was definitely a need. And,
yeah, absolutely. The fact of the matter is we can't, it's so hard to be able to recommend car dealerships and brokers here because there are just lemons in the mix everywhere in Costa Rica.
Yeah. And I heard that from every other gringo. I had such a horrible experience. I had sticker shock over the price. I tried to go kind of cheap, which I still thought I was overpaying, and ended up spending more than what I paid for the car in 10 months just to keep it on the road. And my wife went from this independent woman that's down the road in case the car would die. So, sorry, did I cut out?
Wait, just for a second, my wife went from this independent and then a little glitch there.
She went from this very independent woman to being afraid to drive 20 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
And it's there's a bunch of different factors. It's not that they're crooks. It's not that the shops are run by bad people. It's just the technology has advanced so much in the last 20 years. They haven't been able to keep up with it. So the infrastructure, you couldn't get parts just 15 years ago. So when they couldn't get parts, they had to improvise. And improvising isn't always the best. It might get you on the road and it might get you home, but on the long term, it's just not going to do well. So,
we had a 1990, oh my gosh, Pathfinder.
Okay.
That was at one of the most Frankenstein cars ever. But I mean,
it's a great car when it came out of the factory, but
absolutely it was. Yeah. And we ended up in a routine where it was every other week, we got to take our car back. Yeah. And we've quickly realized in purchasing vehicles here, honestly, our strategy now has become invest as much as you can afford because, you're going to get your money back in time not wasted at the shop. Yep. I feel confident that looking at the prices of vehicles, I can resell these cars at a pretty solid price.
Yes.
Down the line. So I really feel that, we definitely would always try to get a vehicle that was sort of as much as we could afford to invest just to get that best start.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about how you as a dealership and professional ensure that the cars you're putting on your lot are not lemons. I mean, are there talented Costa Rican auto professionals you've found that can handle this? How do you do it?
We started off buying a repair shop that was in existence. They were known in town as the honest shop. They're not going to screw you over, but you'll have to take it back 3 times. Yeah. And I knew you can't fix dishonesty, but you can fix quality control. So we spent a tremendous amount of money and a year and a half just building a repair shop that became one of the best in the Central Pacific zone for offering top tier service, factory trained technicians, the latest technology, concrete floors, actual building.
No, that's important to note. Lots of people locally are relying on a mechanic working in the most basic circumstances
at his house under
a house. there's 40 cars around, because you can tell where the good mechanics live, or the relatively good ones live, because their driveways are just chock full of cars constantly.
Or maybe those are the bad ones.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But we went with one that we were extremely loyal to for years and years. Eventually, it was just not a great relationship. We switched to a new guy. He's working in these simple surroundings, and I would absolutely love to be able to get him the tools he needs, because you can see he's got sort of the knowledge. It's just he doesn't have a dime to spend on quality equipment.
Yeah. And when you think about it, I mean, some people think a scanner is something you can buy for $200 or $300, but the kind that you need to upload new software, the kind that you need to have a co-pilot where you can monitor while it's on the road, they're $8,000 or $9,000, and then there are a couple $1,000s a year to keep updated.
Oh, geez.
And a technician, a guy that's running a shop that makes $8,000 a year, they can't keep up. So we knew that if we were going to have a dealership, it was going to be based on most dealerships look at the service department as something they wouldn't have if they didn't have to have it. We kind of went the opposite. We became the best service department that we could be.
Yeah.
We started selling cars.
Absolutely.
Because when I went to Grecia the first time I got here 5 years ago, and I'm nervous because I've got sucker written on my head. I'm a gringo, and I know they're going to rip me off. I just don't know how much, And one of the things I asked him was, what did you do to fix up this car? And I knew the answer because none of them had a shop. So it was kind of nerve wracking. So, and the experience was terrible. It was absolutely terrible, and it stuck into my.
Yeah, I'm sorry you were one of those folks who had that experience. We're trying to prevent it for you if you are somebody who's considering moving to Costa Rica. My guest this afternoon that we're recording for tonight, Doug Price of Price Auto Sales in Parrita, the Southern Pacific. Their dealership will send you a brand new car, or rather one of their high quality used vehicles. I don't know if you deal in absolutely new ones, but only used. Mm-hmm. They'll deliver it to you wherever you live in Costa Rica. And as we've been discussing, it's a vehicle that they've looked at with one of the best shops in Costa Rica before putting it on the lot. We're recording this in anticipation of tonight so that we can both be a little bit more relaxed at 7 p.m. But Doug is going to be watching and commenting in the chat. So if you have any questions for him, don't hesitate to put a comment there. He'll be able to multitask because of the magic of technology. We'll keep moving forward here. I want to ask you a little bit about, what are the really common popular cars with expats and why?
So everybody comes down here. You want to explore. You want to go. You want to drive everywhere, all over Costa Rica. So some of the good things. The roads are starting to become paved now, much more so. I've seen the progress, a tremendous amount of it in 5 years. I'm sure you have since you've been here. And
right out here.
Yeah. So that's. But everybody comes down. They want that 4-wheel drive. They want that automatic. They want a car that both. In the States, everybody has 2 or 3 cars in the driveway. Well, here they only have 1. And so you need a car that's functional for both people, if there's a couple. And so that's what everybody wants. What I would focus on are kind of what I call the top 5 or 6 brands. Toyota is boss. Toyota is king. You cannot go wrong with it. I mean, Toyota is a great vehicle. But here, everybody works on them. Parts are readily available. So if you do break down and you need a software upgrade, most likely the shops here are going to have it if they are technologically driven. If you need brake pads, you're going to be able to get it. So Toyota being on the top tier. Second is Mitsubishi. Yeah.
Good.
Then you've got Hyundai, Nissan. Those are for SUVs and trucks. Well, not Hyundai, those are mostly SUVs. And then you've got Suzuki, like the Suzuki Jimmys, the Suzuki Swifts. I'm trying to think of, I'm just going to look out there on the lot, but and actually Hondas, those are great cars. The only one I would highly recommend for an SUV would be the CRV. That's one that people can work on and parts are available. The Pilot is a great vehicle. It's an 8-passenger, very challenging to get parts for. So you want to look at a vehicle you really don't want a Chevy, a Dodge, or a Ford. Nothing against those brands. I have a background with those brands. But if an alternator goes out on it, do you want to wait 3 weeks?
And that's something that I've had to break the bad news to so many people across the U.S.
Yes.
They love their truck.
Yep.
It's now tax-free that they can ship in if they do the investor program.
Correct.
So they're thinking about bringing a Dodge Silverado that.
No.
It's like, no.
Well, and here's the other thing that they need to think about. So, let's say you like Toyota and you see that there's Toyota RAV4s here, right? They're all over. A Toyota RAV4 that was made for North America is not the same Toyota RAV that's made for Latin America. It's the same brand. It's the same. It looks the same. One will have Latin American production will have required 2 airbags.
Okay.
Whereas North American might be 8 or 10. So the whole passive restraint system is computerized, includes the seat belts, and it's a different system. So if one sensor fails, you can't get it here. The shocks are, let's talk about struts, your front shocks. They require 3 bolts for Latin America and 4 for North America. So you bend a strut by hitting a 10-foot wide pothole, it's 3 weeks before you get a new one. So you need to look at the brand and that particular model and find out, and not brands are that way. Some brands, they're pretty much the same across the board. That's
great. I've sort of been hinting at that or saying it just because I guessed it was the case. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad that I always figured they would have different models and really that people should stick to what's here. Those sorts of differences, I'm sure, are going to plague a lot of people who decide to import now their vehicle from the U.S.
Yeah.
So do be very careful and, talk to an expert specifically about what kinds of cars are available here in Costa Rica and already serviced, the differences in the Latin American models and what you're actually looking at versus the US or Canada where you're bringing yours from. And don't end up in the trap, where you're waiting 3 weeks to replace.
And I get wanting to bring your car here. I'm not telling people not to do that. What I would suggest is that if it is going to be a vehicle that you maybe a secondary vehicle, if you just come down with that one vehicle, here's part of the problem that you may encounter. It's before this law came into effect, for you to ship a car, let's say from Ohio, it was going to be a 6-week to 12-week process, start to finish, usually closer to that 12-week mark. With an increase of 8 to 12% in imports now because of this law, word is that could expand to 4 months. So you get down here, if your car's not here.
So you're paying $2,000 a month to rent a vehicle.
You're gonna rent a car for $800 a week.
Yeah.
For 20 weeks or for whatever. So you've got to look at that. So it's and then if you end up with a car that if it breaks, you're down for 3 or 4 weeks, and that's if customs doesn't go through it. And so whoever is helping you ship or import, they can help you. We'll tell you which brands, if you're gonna bring it down, which ones to stick with. We're not the only good shop in Costa Rica. We have 33 sister shops around the country that we work with. So we sell our cars with a warranty. We're one of the only places that do it, which kind of blew my mind when we came down here. It was 30 days. And we do a 12-month warranty. We do full coverage insurance. We have roadside assistance. So, there are plenty of good shops.
Well, and that to me is, it's part of the whole differences in experiences in buying cars. And I look at people moving to Costa Rica who, whether it's a real estate decision, a car buying decision, on and on, frequently, some of these bad stories are just their plain old own fault. Because, for example, a lot of times with a car, they know better. They had some experience working on cars when, they were young. And they're a person who thinks that, no, I've bought and sold cars my whole life. I can handle this. I'll go check it out. I'm not going to get ripped off.
Yep.
I know, I don't try to do that whatsoever because I very much understand my profound level of ignorance when it comes to cars. Like my tire changing procedure starts with get out the owner's manual.
Right.
Being able to give people the experience of feeling secure, having that backup, and the complete package of enjoying your car purchase and having something solid. You're going to take more road trips. You're going to feel more comfortable going to the farmer's market. You're not going to worry nearly as much about getting around town.
Yeah.
You're going to enjoy going out and seeing the country, and you're going to like living here more. So I think, quality.
That is the one thing that almost broke my wife and I from living in Costa Rica was that car. That was the worst car. And I'll give you an example. So we have 4 kids grown and gone. And so the first time our youngest daughter is coming to see us on the way, crossing, just cross the Tarcoles River. That car hated the Tarcoles Bridge, by the way. Anyway, it broke down. So we had to scramble, call a stranger to pick up our daughter. I mean, not the end of the world, but definitely tainted that experience. To make it worse, in my mother-in-law's eyes, I drug her daughter down to some, forsaken third world country, right? So when she came to visit, I really wanted everything to go perfectly right. Well, guess what broke down?
Yeah.
On the way to driving, Miss Daisy home. And to make it worse, it was 100 degrees out and the car was overheating. So to keep the engine cool, I had to run the heater.
Oh, yeah. I've been in that experience in college where I took a long trip in an overheating car. And I mean, what you're talking about, I've had those same moments where, generally speaking, I felt like, I have the most incredibly, stalwart wife who really was never even close to questioning things. But when our 1990 Pathfinder would break down at the side of the road the 15th time, and even getting it running, it sounded like a pile of junk. It was like,
you better do something.
Yeah, it's kind of like, man, I gotta, this really feels like we're living on the edge here. And we definitely weren't going out and seeing Costa Rica and enjoying those experiences. Right. You'd go to the beach less. And so it's, I think the moral of the story is definitely the investment in your vehicle is worth it.
Yep.
Just as much because, yes, you will hit more lemons if you go cheap, but also because your quality of life is really going to show a return on investment. In the US, you get a car and you're going to get from point A to point B.
Yes.
And if you're from the Midwest, like Doug and I, point A and B, neither of them is that interesting anyway. I saw you're from Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. So we're from real gems of, the Parises of the Midwest. But anyhow, you want your vehicle here because there are amazing places to visit, and a lot of them are at the end of quasi bad roads.
Yes.
So one more question sort of in general, if you're talking to your friend who says, I'm going to buy a car in Costa Rica, and you don't have your workshop, what do you say to them? What are your tips to avoid just ending up in one of these nightmare scenarios?
Yeah, get a mechanic to look at it. And if you don't have friends in the area, first of all, referrals. So there's all kind of expat pages. So if you don't know anyone here, your realtor might know someone. At least there's a shop, maybe not to sell you a car, but a shop just to go to. So if you can look on Facebook Marketplace. There's always vehicles out there. crautos.com is a great resource.
Yeah.
So you can shop that. But don't buy it until you've had a shop look at it. So you can call me if you're not near. We offer that service for people. The seller can come to our shop, and then the buyer can meet here. We have our own attorneys on staff, so they can use them, and we just help facilitate the transactions. We charge 36,000 colognes, but it's a 3-hour inspection, 64 things we check. We do a background check to make sure there's no unpaid parking tickets or speeding tickets, to make sure the title's clear. So at the end of that 3 hours, I can tell them, for you to have no problems with this car, to the best of our knowledge, for the next 12 months, here's everything that it needs. And your title's clean, there's no unpaid tickets, everything's good to go. And if you want, the attorneys are right upstairs. So that's that process. So if you are 4 hours away, if the buyer and seller are 4 hours away, you're not coming here, but give us a call. We'll let you know at least the shop, and we can send you our inspection form that's in Spanish that they can do for you. At least that's something.
Yeah.
And that's to walk. We run ads all over the country to buy cars. We have about 40 people a week, about 8 a day, come in and say, buy my car. And we buy 2 a week that way.
Okay.
So they're just too messed up. We spend about $3,000 a car on average before it goes on our lot. Yeah. So once they kind of cross that threshold, it's just too overpriced. And so. Yeah.
Well, and no, I think I want to go back and touch on the fact that a 64-point inspection done by real pros in Costa Rica, 36,000 colones is about $60 right now, maybe even a bit less with the exchange rate. Honestly, these kinds of things don't, especially finding the high-tech shops, they don't exist far and wide.
Yeah.
And, the great thing about the country,
that $60 will save you $1,000. Because if I'm trying to sell you a car, and I'm going to give you a tip, I'm going to give your viewers a tip to buy a car if it's not through me, okay? Yeah. So if they see an ad, and the ad's going to say impeccable, perfect condition, it's not going to say don't buy, okay. So if
terrible motor.
Yeah, terrible, don't, yeah. So how I respond to them is I say, your price seems fair. I'll pay you exactly what you're asking. No haggling. I'll pay you exactly what you're asking if the car is indeed in perfect condition. I just need my mechanics to look at it. Yeah. But now you've set the stage. So now the car comes in and it's legitimately got blown shocks and 5% left on the brakes, and it hasn't had a tune-up in forever, and the oil is mud. Here's $1,500 of stuff. I will buy it minus this.
Yeah.
And so that $60 is.
Yeah. No, and that's a great, I've mentioned before here that I think in Costa Rica, foreigners often come and just try to negotiate with prices before they have the real, like I see this in real estate where they don't have the knowledge to back up, they're negotiating. So they'll say, I only want to pay you $350,000 for this house, even though it's listed at $4 something, for my own reasons. And I think it's amazing to say to a person, yeah, your value says this price at perfect condition. Let's take a look at it, because Costa Rica. I hope
experience. To make it worse, 2 a week that way.
okay.
So that's kind of a trick question, but here's the one rule of thumb. If you figure out what the kind of car you want,
He doesn't live in
no,
he's never spent tons of time in every community,
No.
but there's an Atenas expat folk, Facebook group.
Well,
There are
Costa-
millions and millions and millions of groups out there for the specific community.
Yeah.
So once you've figured out, I'm going to live here and I need information about vehicles and the mechanic right in this community,
Mhm.
that's when you can get in one of these pages and it's an abundance of, frankly, people with too much time on their hands who are going to bombard you with information. It's like,
You're gonna
oh
have
my
your
God.
choice,
Yeah, if you want to have, good luck sending car questions out there and not getting into a debate with people about, politics and everything else that constantly comes up. It's the best of social media, but you will have thousands of people on the car front for sure.
Yeah.
Tell me, give me a quick ballpark so that expats watching are not left hanging. They want a quality new car.
Okay.
Let's say one of the models that we've talked about, these Toyotas that are really the top cars in Costa Rica, maybe a 2018 or 2019 that's going to get them around everywhere and be comfortable for their family. What sorts of price points are we looking at for different kinds of good, solid models that you recommend?
So that's kind of a trick question, but here's the one rule of thumb. If you figure out what the kind of car you want, the condition, cosmetically, the brand, whatever, you should be able to find something comparable where you're at. Canada, Ohio, Colorado, wherever. Double it. That's honestly double it and maybe even add another 1,000.
Yep.
Where they really, so a Toyota RAV4, if it's 20,000, if that 2018 is $18,000 in Ohio, it's 36,000 here. Through me, it might even be another 1,000 because I'm the only one that's actually fixing them up. The other thing with us too is our cars come with full coverage insurance. No one else is doing this. So it has the regular state minimum insurance that everybody sells their cars with, but ours comes with $200,000 in full coverage, not just liability. So it covers them, it covers you, it covers everything else. We also have full roadside assistance nationwide. So you run out of gas, as long as you've got a cell signal in WhatsApp, they bring you 5 liters. No, I mean, everybody's
perfect. And I think it can't be emphasized enough. Whether I'm talking about paying people for their salaried work here in Costa Rica, whether you're looking at renting an apartment, whether you're looking at buying food or a car, whatever it is, don't expect Costa Rica to be cheap, and expect that your investment and deciding not to be cheap is going to pay off. If you pay your employees well, they're going to start producing better for you, and you're going to not feel like you live in land. If you buy quality food and pay local organic farmers, obviously you're going to eat better. If you buy quality vehicles from quality people, 6 months down the road, you're going to be enjoying Costa Rica, drinking whatever you want, wherever you want, and not having these, experiences where people end up frustrated, just beaten down by Costa Rica in general. Because
and you're going to save money, to be honest with you.
Oh, I'm positive. And, like I mentioned, we really, this was our biggest car purchase ever. We did sort of as much as we could at this moment in history. And I have no fear whatsoever that in 5-6 years, the difference between where I bought it and what I'm going to sell it for, that difference in price spread over the 5 years is going to be about the cheapest, high quality car lifestyle that you can find in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And I've started telling people, if you can afford a new or close to new vehicle here, just go for it, because at the end of that, 3 or 4 years, you sell it for 20% less or whatever the depreciation's been, instead of just buying a junker and ending up leaving it somewhere on this road when you just utterly had it,
There's actually two. There's another. So you've also got vehicles that are very popular here, like the Land Cruiser Prado, the Toyota Fortuner, even the Mitsubishi Montero Sport Turbo Diesel. These are the Toyota Hilux or Hilux, depending on whether you're from Indianapolis or Ohio. But these are great vehicles that if you've never lived outside the U.S. or Canada, you've never driven. So, those are, a Toyota Prado LX is going to be $128,000 to $130,000 new. So, a nice 10-year-old one is going to be $50,000 or $60,000. Yeah. So you can avoid, and that's as good as you can get here. That's the best. That is the best of both worlds. But do you really need that? You could go to a 2013-14 4Runner and have more space, almost as good of a ride, maybe not all the bells and whistles, and you're $39,000 to $42,000 out the door with a vehicle it's a truck base. So you have to look at two things. Where are you going to live? If you're a surfer and you're going to live by the beach, and 90% of the time is going to be pavement or flat gravel roads and going down the beach, you can get anything. You can get that Suzuki Jimmy. You can get the Daihatsu Terios. You can get those smaller SUVs or cars, no problem. You 50-50 mix, you can go to a RAV4. You can go to a Hyundai Tucson, very, very popular car, or that Honda CR-V. If you're mostly mountainous, it's kind of the 80-20 rule. If you're 80% mountainous or a rough terrain and only 20% in flat or paved roads, then you really need to look at an SUV with a truck frame, and that's going to be the Mitsubishi Montero. That's going to be the 4Runner. That's going to be the Fortuner. That's going to be the Prado, or a pickup truck. The Toyota Hilux pickup trucks are phenomenal. I mean, they ride like a Cadillac. They're big extended cabs, and you got the bed if you need to haul something. So
I mean, I grew up, my family was always, in suburban Indianapolis, super small Corollas and Camrys, just to get to around the city. I have much bigger cars here. I think one of my cars is bigger than two of my childhood cars combined. We have a 2000 Land Cruiser Prado now, which, we were going to trade it in, and we got offers for it. And it was like, no, this thing is absolutely huge. It's a monster.
Yeah.
And so the cash right now is really not that great, but it's a car that we can rent long term. And we're actually going to start doing that, where I've got so many retiree US and Canadian clients who visit the community who don't want to pay $800 a week. I can give them this gigantic Prado that they really can't, they can't even drive it too fast. It gets it to about 60 topping out. And they're tickled pink, and so it's a great arrangement. It's extremely great advice. The different makes and models, figure out where you're going to live. And maybe it really makes sense, just like your real estate search, you shouldn't be looking at specific condos before you have any idea where you want to live.
Correct.
Figure out where you want to live and what your situation is going to be, and involve your car decision in that process. I was telling Doug just before we started broadcasting, the car that we purchased this time is way smaller than we would have imagined 10 years ago. And it's because my wife is now on 90% pavement, and speed bumps on that pavement are about the worst thing that she does in all of that driving.
Yep.
So there's no reason for us to burn a gallon every 7 or 8 miles with our Prado. She can have something much smaller now because the roads are getting better and our vehicles are evolving with time. It's not just, buy the cheapest, biggest, baddest vehicle so I can get out to my, old job. It's minimize
You've
costs.
also been here long enough so that you know what your needs are. Whereas I think a lot of people, when they come here, they don't want to be restricted. Maybe they don't know where they're going to be. And that's it's one of the reasons we started our buyback program. So you can, and I think we're the only ones doing it, but you can buy any car from us. Doesn't matter. There's no exclusions. We guarantee to buy it back from you within 6 months for 80%. And then after it crosses 6 months, from 6 months to 12 months for 70% of what you paid.
Wow.
You're always better if you can sell it on your own, but I'm the easiest process to buy it back. We want to buy our cars back because we've already fixed them up.
Yeah.
And but maybe you get here, and like you said, you get here and you're in this big vehicle, and it's just after 4 or 5 months, it's just not it. You're not stuck with it. If you're uncomfortable selling it on your own, you do have an out.
Well, and 20% of the cost of a lot of your vehicles is going to be what people have to pay to rent for 6 months. So I'm not suggesting anyone deliberately do this. I had thought about it in renting a car for a long term and saying, how about this? You pay me for the car up front. I'll buy it back from you at the end of our rental period, and we'll determine the difference.
Because it reduces your liability, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
We did it. Yeah.
You do worry. I mean, people can get into situations here, but I think it's very true. People might have that fantasy about, I'm going to move to Costa Rica and I'm going to go on wild adventures. I see myself.
Which you should. Should.
But you might do that.
But it's hot
3
here.
months.
It's really hot. So
But the long story short, you may get done with that after 6 months and get into your routine. And especially if you're living, in Flamingo or Tamarindo or up near the airport here, your life routine may settle down into something where you're only on an adventurous jungle road once a week or once every couple weeks when you choose to do it. And over time, you can get a reasonable car. So I don't think that people really imagine themselves, I've got to have this monster. There's a good chance, you can survive with that Tucson. In our family's case, an ASX, it's, we're really thankful that it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to take any more of Doug's time. We've been speaking with Doug Price of Price Auto Sales down in Parrita. It's in the Central Pacific, about halfway between me and Panama. They are one of the few dealerships in the country that is offering really full protection for buyers coming into the country and purchasing used vehicles.
And
my wife and I, pardon?
We take crypto. So I think we're the only ones taking crypto.
And they take crypto. Really interesting there as well. I definitely have tons of people.
Another episode. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's something. I was on somebody else's crypto blog a couple times, this guy in the southern, but absolutely people are interested in that as well. If you haven't visited their website, it's Price Autos with an S and then CR.com. They're available to do 64-point inspections on your vehicle for $60 if you're purchasing one here in Costa Rica. I would make a road trip down to Parrita just to do that, see the area, get your vehicle professionally checked.
Or give us a call. We can answer questions over the phone too. So.
Yep, they can answer questions over the phone. As I mentioned, we'll be watching the comments tonight, so feel free to post questions if you've got any. I'm sure that we will be able to put you in touch with Doug, or you'll be able to find his contact information on priceautoscr.com. Again, I do not want to be the referral guy. Contact Doug if you need a car. I'm personally so far owning one of their vehicles for 7 days and
7 whole
still
days.
highly
No
recommended.
problems.
No problems, but absolutely. The second I saw your shop and I walked in, you can feel the quality. You could see that this was something special in Costa Rica.
Thank you. Really
And
appreciate
that's why I even came running back upstairs. It was like, no, this would be too stupid to come all the way to Parrita and not get Doug back on my YouTube channel, because every day people ask me, what do I do about a car? I tell them, be super careful.
Yep.
And instead, I'm going to start saying, call Price Autos, pay $500 to get a car delivered wherever you are in Costa Rica, and just go from there.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a huge pleasure. I appreciate it. Doug Price is down in Parrita. I'm Costa Rica Matt. Our next live Wednesday episode will be Digital Nomads, Chapter 2, interviewing some folks who are living in Tamarindo on a high-level tech mesh network, another subject I know nothing about. Doug Price again, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everybody, see you next Wednesday. Pura vida.